In this problem, we would be able to learn concepts such as queue, dynamic programming, breadth first search, a bunch of different graph concepts, and also how you can actually approach solving a problem from a very different perspective. So without any delay, let's get started. So the LeetCode problem we are going to solve now is called open the lock. And we can see that this one is a LeetCode medium problem, but we can also categorize this as a hard problem in some facets. So let's understand that what does the problem statement is asking us to do. We are given a log that is in front of us that contains 4 circular wheels. Now we all have seen the log where you can rotate it from 0 to 9, and we are currently given a log that contains like 4 such wheels that we can control in different manner. Now we are given the starting position that is going to be 0 0 0 0, and we are also given a target value that represents the value of the wheel that we will need to reach in order to unlock the wheel. So that's pretty much quite straightforward. Now the thing is, we are also given a list of dead ends, which means we must avoid these dead ends. And no matter how we try to rotate around the wheels, we must always make sure that we never reach to a point where we are at a dead end. So we'll have to circle back around it or find some other way. And once we do that, once we reach to a target value, we need to return the minimum total number of turns that are required for us to make in order to reach to that value. If we can't reach, we will need to return -1. Now, the complicated part in this problem is actually understanding the whole problem. Now we are given an example of 0 0 0 0, which means 4 circular lock, but that makes things much more complicated. What approach I will do is, we will try to understand this problem on what if we only had just one lock, what if we had 2 locks, or like 2 circle locks, and what if we had 3 circle locks. And then we will try to see that how we can form solution for a complex problem like this. So let's try to understand the problem. Let's say that we are currently given a target of 7 and we are given the initial starting position as 0. Now currently I'm not talking about dead ends, but I'll get back to it in just a second. So let's try to understand that from this 0, how can we reach to this 7? Well, first of all, from this 0, we have 2 options. We can either go from 0 to 1, or we can go from 0 to 9. Okay. Now, once again, from this 1, we once again have 2 options. From 1, we can go back to 2, or we can go back to 0. But the thing is, 0, we have already come from 0, so we are not going to go back to 0. Let's just say, keep it for simplicity. From 9, we have once again 2 options. We can either go back to 8, or we can go back to 0. Once again, we are not going to do that. From 2, we have once again 2 options. We can either go to 3 or 1. And from 8, we have 2 options. We can either go to 7, or we can go back to 9. So now we have reached to 7, and this is the solution that we are basically trying to achieve, the target value. So how many turns did it took us from reach to 0 to 7? Well, this was the first turn, this was the second turn, and this was the third turn. So 3 is the minimum number of turns required for us to reach to the value 7. Now let's presume that in this case, if we had a dead end located at position number 8, what would have happened in that case? Well, once again, we would have proceeded in the same manner right now, but at the 9, the moment we saw that one option is 0, which we have already seen, and another option is 8, which is a dead end, so we cannot move forward with 8. So in that case, this entire path closes for us, so we no longer would be able to consider this one. So the only way for us to move forward would be using this path, where eventually we would have reached to value number 7, and that would have taken us basically 7 different ways in order to reach that. And in this case, 7 would be the minimum number of clicks we would have to make in order to reach to the final position. So that is the answer we'll have to return. So now, what are the things we are ignoring when we are building the solution? Number A, we are always checking that whether the solution we are reaching to, or the data point we are reaching to, whether it is part of the dead end or not. If it is part of the dead end, we are simply stopping exploring any further from that point onwards. That's number one thing we are doing. Second thing is, we are also checking that all the things that we have already seen, are we also repeating those or not, and we are not repeating those. So somehow we will have to find a way to keep track of that, what are the different dead ends that we should never go, and what are all the elements that we have already seen that we should never go. These are the two intuitions we can build. Now let's try to explore a two lock system where we are starting from 0, 0, and let's say for simplicity our target value is 19. So what we are going to do is that we have four different possibilities at this position. First position is going to be 0, 1. Next position is going to be 1, 0. Next position is going to be 0, 9. And next position is going to be 9, 0. So notice that for each character we are taking two possibilities on whether this value 0 can be the subsequent value 1 or the previous value 9, while we are keeping the other value unchanged, and then we are repeating the same process. So logically, even at the 0, 1 location, once again we are going to have four possibilities. First possibility is that the 0 remains as it is. So in that case, this 1 can become 2, so we can become 0, 2. Or we can, this 1 can also become 9, so we can become 0, 9. Now notice that 0, 9 is already here, but we are also once again we can compute beforehand. So eventually when we get to this point, we might have already computed that, but let's not worry about that at the moment. So these are the two possibilities. What are the next two possibilities? So next possibility is that this 0 can be turned into 1. So it can either become 1, 1, or it can also become 9, 1. Okay, now let's try to calculate more possibilities, but for simplicity we are just going to consider the 0, 9 because that is going to give us the answer. So the 0, 9 can have one of the possibilities as 1, 9 if we just convert this 0 into 9. So this is the target that we are trying to find. Now notice that how many clicks it took us. It took us 1, 2, and then 3. So answer is going to be that it took us 3 attempts to come up with this answer. Now logically, what we are doing to build this solution? Well, basically we are just building a decision tree for any given set of nodes. So what we are doing is we are currently given a starting point, so we can treat the starting point as one of the node within the graph that is going to be the entry point in the graph, and then we are going to have a connected graph where we, for each of the different possibilities, they are going to be the nodes in the graph, and each of the different connections we can make would be the edges within the graph. Now once we find that from point A all the way up to point B we can reach in any particular fashion, then this is going to be, let's say, the answer that we are trying to get to. So all the different edges is going to be, sum of all the different edges is what we are looking for. So these are the number of clicks required for us to come to that solution. That's a given fact, right? Now how do we get there? Basically what we are doing is that at initial position we have multiple different possibilities. For each of this possibility we are exploring all the other possible options. Same thing we are doing for the previously calculated value, same thing we are doing for the previously calculated value, and so on and so forth. So logically what we are doing is we are traversing in the level order or in the breadth of the given problem. So we are doing like what do we call as BFS, or breadth first search traversal, where from one point we are exploring all of its neighbors, and then for each of the neighbors once again we are exploring all of its neighbors, and some neighbors can be interconnected. That's where we are seeing an example where this 0, 0 has a neighbor that is 0, 9, which is also a neighbor of this 0, 1, because once again it is connected. So logically we can say that this is connected to this point. So that's why this looks like a tree, but it is actually a graph, because there are circles or there are cycles that can be formed, and tree does not have any cycles. But let's not get into the different concepts. Let's just stay focused towards our actual problem we are trying to solve. Now we know that we are trying to compute a breadth first search. Now breadth first search is achieved using queues. So whenever you are trying to solve any particular problem and you reach to a conclusion that we are reaching a breadth first search approach, we will have to use a queue. How does breadth first search approach works? Let me give you a very simple example. Let's say that currently I have one possibility A. Now for this A, we are going to have three different neighbors. That is going to be B, C, and once again D. And let's say that for this B, once again I'm going to have all the many different like X, Y, and Z. These are going to be its neighbors. So what I'm going to do is, we know the concept of queue. It operates on first in first out principle. So we are going to insert A at the beginning of the queue. So currently my queue is going to be empty. I'm going to add a value entry A over here, and then I'm going to enter all the neighbors of A. that are currently present. So these are the values going to be B, C and D. And once I have explored all the neighbors of A, then I can get rid of A because I have already processed A. But in the meantime, I haven't processed all the remaining values because they are still within the queue. So we will keep the queue going until we reach to a point where the queue is completely empty, and queue would only be empty if we have taken into the consideration of all the different neighbors that exist. So now for B, I have entered the value x, y and z in the loop, and after entering that I can get rid of B because I have already explored this solution. And then all I need to do is just see all the neighbors of C. C does not have any children, D does not have any children, X, Y and Z is what I was looking for. And let's say that Z is the answer that I'm looking forward to. I have already processed Z because through Q or through BFS, and then whatever the distance was from A to B to Z, I can keep a track of in some sort of, let's say, steps variable or answer variable that is going to be storing all the results. So this is the whole solution that we are trying to build. That now I gave you an example of one string and two string. Same can be true if we are given three different locks. Once again, we are going to have multiple different permutations and combinations that we can make, and then we would be able to just driving that solution forward. Now we know that we need to avoid dead ends and we need to avoid all the values that we have already seen. So what we would do is we would just create a hash set for both of these things. And after, because why are we creating hash sets? Because even though it's going to consume extra space, we will have a separate data structure that performs all of the search steps in big O of 1. So we are going to be storing the results that any pair that is part of dead end. If that is the case, we will just stop immediately and we would pop that element from the queue. So we would not be exploring any of the neighbors of that particular element. If we see that element is already, we have seen something, so we know for a fact that it does not lead to a proper conclusion, or its neighbors are already part of the queue, so we don't even need to consider that for our solution. And that would be able to give us eventually that we would reach to a node that is our target node based on just different probabilities or different permutations and combinations of solutions. Now, what is going to be the time complexity in this problem? So time complexity for this problem is actually going to be constant time complexity. Why? Because we are for sure given that there are only going to be 4 different possibilities. So since there are only 4 different possibilities within a lock, the maximum number of combinations we can have is going to be 0 all the way up to 9999. So in total 10,000 combinations, and for each of the pair or each position we can have 8 possibilities. So it's 10,000 multiplied by 8. So overall since we only have 80,000 possibilities, that is the maximum time, worst case time complexity we can have. So because this is a finite number, I'm considering this as a constant time complexity. But I know your interviewer is not going to ask you a number like this. What if this number pair was going to be in millions? So in that case, the time complexity would have been to go over all the different possibilities of nodes and edges within the given graph, and that would have been big O of m multiplied by n, where m is the total number of nodes and n is the total number of possibility for each of the nodes or total number of edges. So overall, your interviewer would be very pleased with this explanation of time complexity. For the space complexity, because we are using an additional hash set to store the values of all the already previously calculated result, it's going to be big O of k, where k is the total number of possible combinations we can add to dead ends and our hash set. So whichever is larger would be our space complexity. So I hope this solution makes sense. The core concept of this problem was to explain you that how does a BFS work and how you can break a complex problem down into bunch of different smaller subsets and then try to make your way around through building logic through that way. And now let's move on to the coding for this. So here is the coding solution. First of all, we are going to define a hash set that is going to take care of all the different dead ends that we are provided. And then we are going to check that if the dead end contains the 0000, basically the very first node, we can simply return -1. And also we can check that if the 0000 is the target that we are given, that is one of the edge cases, we can simply return 0 because we don't have to change any locks. Now let's see our breadth first search implementation. So we are going to have a queue where we will add bunch of things. We are going to have a hash set that where we are going to keep track of all the elements that we have already seen. And then we are going to start our queue with adding the value of 0000 as the first node in the queue, and we are also going to be marking it eligible for our scene hash set, so in future we don't just repeat the element. Now initially we are at step 0, so because we haven't made any clicks. Now our breadth first search implementation starts that until queue is not empty, we are going to check that what is the current size of the queue. Then we are going to check that for any single element that is currently present within the given queue, we are going to poll or get rid of that current item. Then we are going to check that whether that is present inside our one of our dead end. If that is the case, we will just get rid of it. We will just skip those states because we don't need to worry. We don't need to enter any of its subsequent neighbors. If that is not the case, if it is the target, then we can simply return the steps as well. If that is not the case, then we will have to generate all the neighbors by turning the wheel plus or minus 1. And for each of those neighbors, this is the simple logic on how we are going to be doing that. For each of those neighbors, we are once again going to be adding them up to the queue, and we are also going to check that whether they are part of the given dead end or the scene element that we have seen. If that is the case, we would not be adding it into the queue. If not, we would be adding it into the queue, and that goes for both turning it up and turning it down, both the different possibilities. And we will keep on repeating this, and with every new neighbor or new level being added, we will update our steps. So total step it takes to reach to that next possibility or set of levels. And if we have a combination, we should be able to reach it within this queue. If we don't, then we simply return -1. So this is the full coding solution. Let's try to run our solution. Okay, seems like our solution is working as expected. Let's submit this code. And our code runs beautifully, beating almost 60% of all the other solutions, which is pretty good. We are also really efficient in terms of memory usage, so that is also nice. Now once again, the coding solution is present in my GitHub repository, so feel free to go and check it out from there. Thank you.